Welcome, everyone. This is a day in the life of a data engineer with Anju Mercian, and I will now pass the session over to Anju.
Hello, everybody. Thank you all for joining. Let me share my screen here. Okay, hi. So hello, everybody. So this is a day in the life of me as a data engineer. You can get all my contacts in my website here, anjumercian.me. Information. So today's agenda is going to be, I'll just start a little bit about me and then who am I, and then what data engineering is, how I got into data engineering, my career pivot story, the courses that actually helped me, the challenges I faced, and the final takeaways and Q&A. Just give me 1 second. Okay. So about me, I'm Anju Mercian. I graduated from Syracuse University with a master's in computer engineering. Then I worked for different companies like Intel, VMware, Intuitive Surgical, and also Omdina, which is it's a startup on AI based. I worked as a platform engineer there. And currently I work as a data engineer for Meta. I have almost like 10 plus experience in the industry, but as various in different units, like as infrastructure engineer, project manager, business system analyst, and platform engineer. So basically, what is data engineering? So this is, I don't want to read out the whole thing, but I'll just talk through it. So everything is data nowadays, right? Like we are collecting everything that we do, data is being collected. Alexa collects data, all products collect data everywhere. Even our cell phones collect the data. So all of this is stored somewhere in big data. So for what we do as data engineering is basically clean up the data, understand the data. So as data engineers, we need to understand the data, clean the data, work on the raw data, and also sometimes process that information so that it's easily digestible for the business units, for data scientists. So our as a data engineer, or data engineering involves everything around being with data, right? Getting very familiarizing yourself with all of the different data, familiarizing yourself with the business aspects. So that is the science behind this is called data engineering. And who's the data engineers? The ones that do the work. So we collect, manage, convert raw data to usable information for business analysts, data scientists to interpret. So basically building like dashboards so that's easily consumable for them. And our ultimate goal is to make data accessible so that organizations can use it to evaluate the products. Okay, so skills needed are all of this. There's a lot of skills needed. So you can have like Hive, you can have Apache Spark, Airflow. For personally, I've written AWS for EMR, Redshift, and S3. But you can also have GCP, that's Google Cloud Platform. They also have different products. I'm not very familiar with it. I studied all of AWS, so that's why I am familiar with that. I'll talk a little bit about Apache Airflow. Apache Airflow is actually called, does the pipelines. So basically when you build something, so for example, you have data, you have cleaned the data on your system, you have done, you've looked into the tables, you've joined tables, and you have produced the data on a spreadsheet or anywhere like spreadsheet or on a dashboard. But you need to like have it on screen for them regularly, like so regularly at 7 a.m. say for example, you need this data on a dashboard. So Apache Airflow actually does that in the background. So you put your data or pipeline into Apache Airflow, and it every day at 7 a.m. it will kind of take the data, clean it up, and push it to the dashboard for you. So that's Apache Airflow. And then PySpark is also used for data analysis. Basically data analysis that you do. But the main skills that they will test you on is SQL and Python, and everything else is learnable. But if you know, it's always an advantage for you. So when I started my journey to searching for a job, I knew all of this. So that's why I just share that. So these are skills that are needed. Here I'm just going to talk about my story. How I got into data engineering is that if you see what I've done is I did computer engineering, I did infrastructure engineering, so many different things. But so I never felt at home anywhere any of the other units. I liked all of them. They're very challenging, nice units to work on, but I just didn't feel at home in any of those spaces. So a few years back, as soon as COVID hit, I actually lost my job, and I was pregnant at that time, so it was difficult for me to find another job because I was on contract basis and stuff like that. So I thought, okay, let me take this time that I lost my job and I'm pregnant. I don't really go out and looking for a job during my pregnancy. So during that time, I took online courses and I was trying to figure out what I wanted to do, and that's when I came across machine learning. Actually, that's when I first stumbled about machine learning and data engineering. So when I was doing machine learning courses, I'll show you all the courses that I have taken. But when I was doing courses there, that's when, so machine learning involved a lot of algorithms, a lot more in depth. So before that, before going to the algorithms, you have all of this data cleaning and data process. And that's when I found out that there's something called data engineering that actually does all of this. And I wanted to be there in data exploration team, the cleaning team. So that's where I wanted to be. I realized that. And that is how I got into data engineering. So late last year, I was like, okay, I want to start looking into data engineering, and I took some courses, studied. And beginning of this year, I actually got into Omdina, but then I got into Meta, so I jumped to Meta, and now I'm working as a data engineer. So that is my story about how I got into data engineering. And actually, right now, I feel at home with data engineering. I like what I'm doing. I like the work that I'm doing. Working with SQL and Python is nice. So the courses that help me with getting into becoming a data engineer, it actually started with machine learning courses by Andrew Ng. And then Udacity actually has a lot of scholarships. So I was able to secure 2 scholarships, Secure and Private AI and Bertelsmann scholarship. And through them, I did a few courses. And then I did a lot of deep learning courses, computer vision courses, machine learning using TensorFlow. And the main course that actually helped me get my job is the data engineering nano degree from Udacity. They cover all of this modeling, the ETL based modeling. ETL is actually extract, transform, and load. So that's basically what the data engineer does. We extract data in different formats. We transfer the data to a readable format and then load it into like a dashboard. So that's what a data engineer does. And data engineering Udacity nano degree course actually helped me understand all of that and get into data engineering. And while I was doing that course is when I started applying, and I got into data engineering and as a data engineer. So these are courses that help me. So the challenges for finding a job, there's a lot of challenges. Since I was pivoting my career and I didn't have a background in data engineering, I didn't have lots of projects, I didn't have production experience. So anywhere that I applied to, the first thing that they asked me was, do you have production experience? And I did not have that. So I just now I have that. Till I got the job, I did not have it. So finding that production experience is what sometimes I feel is needed in the industry. So basically solve real world problems. So somehow the small startup that I work for, Omdina, they actually have volunteer experience where you can actually volunteer to activity or to a project, which is actually a real world experience project, and you can do you can work on the projects, and that is a real world project because you are submitting that to a company, to the third party company. So I worked on all of that, and then worked on a lot of projects. And then the more I start reading job specifications, they wanted everything. They wanted cloud experience, HTML, CSS, so all of this. So I was able, since I was HTML, CSS, I was already doing in courses. I studied all of that, kind of built my own portfolio with GitHub and Gaggle projects and open source projects. But the one thing that helped me was actually doing real world projects with the startup called Omdina, and they gave me a good portfolio for that. So those were the challenges I faced while I was looking for jobs. Then I'll go over the interview process, how my interview process was for data engineering. So usually start with like a take home. they gave me a take home. This is my process, and everybody follows different processes. So for me, it was a take home. There were two take home. One was SQL based, one was Python based. So SQL based was all about joins and window functions. You needed to know all of that, and they'll give you a lot of problems. So it was time based, so you need to finish it very fast. Then there was Python based. Python based. It was not data structures and algorithms like software engineering, but it was all based on dictionaries, your lists. So basically, everything for data engineering interview was all time based. So in a short amount of time, how many you can finish, how many questions you can finish is what they will count on. Then they have something called data modeling round, where they'll give you so basically system design. So it's like you design a system with the data they give you. So they'll give you different tables, and then you will talk on how to basically model them. So there are like different schemas that you can talk about, like star schema, snowflake schema, all of that. Sorry. So star schema, snowflake schema, all of this information. And then what's a fact table, what's a dimension table. So you need to like look into all of that, understand all of that, and talking about all of that during. So basically, you'll be architecturing based on the data. So if they give you like 2 or 3 big data tables, how will you split them up into consumable format? Right. For example, if they give you like an immigration table and temperature table, they give you immigration table, temperature table, and so they get, so basically they'll say, okay, I want to know how many where to which kind of state. So the temperature table contains like all the cities in the US or states in the US that has the temperature of that place. Okay? So they've given an immigration table. So so one question can be like, how do you bring these immigrants? How do you find out what kind of climate are there more immigrants migrating to? So how do you break up these tables in such a way that it's like you can answer this question? That's kind of an interview question that they'll ask. Then one major thing that they will ask with bringing the data field, one thing major we have to understand is we need to understand the business impact. So everything that we do, there will be a business impact with. So we are just not building like a product, we're building something so that they can make business decisions. So understanding that business impact is very important, and that was questioned to me during my interview process, that usually all data engineers are asked that, and even ML engineers, data scientists are all asked that question. What will be the like business impact? And so I need to know how my products are doing over time, or like how many feedbacks are coming in, how many bugs are being reported for a particular product. Like okay, Google product, right? Like how many bugs are being reported on a daily basis? Those are all like business impacts. Those are all something that a TPM project manager or somebody needs to understand, so that they can help figure out, reduce those bug impacts, right? So those are like business impacts. So those are some of the questions that they'll ask you there. So that is the interview process. So basically, now coming to the day in the life. So what do I do on a day-to-day basis, or what does a data engineer do on a day-to-day basis? Basically, it's all meetings. Most of your days meetings, as usual in every company, corporate job, you have meetings. So you talk to people that want to see data in a different consumable format, right? So it will be your manager. It will be a manager. Usually they're managers, they're or somebody reporting to like a top level manager. So they will say, okay, this is all the table. This is a problem I need to solve. For example, bug reporting, right? So we have this product, like okay, Google product, and I want to know how many bugs are there. So can you give me in a chart, like a graph, how many bugs are being reported every week? So the past 1 week, over a week, how many bugs are being reported? I want that data. So that's what they'll give you. That's what you'll have meetings with the stakeholders. Then you need to go and gather the data. So sometimes data will be in like a big data format like Hive or Hadoop, and then you need to go find out from which tables they are in, or if they're in different tables, you can basically break it down and take only the chunk. Basically break it down by date time. So since they're asking you only for a week, so you break it down by date time, partition it by date time. and you take that data, then you explore the data, see whether you have lots of nulls or whether you don't have the right format, get it into the right format that's needed. So if it is in Parquet format, get into CSV format if that's what is needed. Then change all the formats, bring it into one format, and then define what model you want, like a star schema, snowflake schema, whatever more design you want it in. This design can be done with other data engineers too. Usually in bigger companies, they already have everything figured out. In smaller companies, you may have to be the one doing it, but usually bigger companies have everything figured out. They have pipelines built. You may just inherit pipelines, and you need to find out where this data is stored. But otherwise, you define the data model, build a pipeline. When I say pipeline, it's basically this whole thing like that you clean and everything. You put it in like functions, logical functions, and like I told you about the airflow, put it into that like a cron job at the background, right? So that every day at 7 a.m. It does what it's supposed to do. So putting it into that format is what we call pipeline. That is what the data pipeline is. So basically, you're cleaning the data, you're changing the format, changing a column format, or making the data presentable. All of that is called the pipeline. So you put it into that cron job pipeline or the background job pipeline. That's called like building the model and running the ETL. So ETL is basically extract, transform, and load. So you extract the data wherever it is, whichever format is it in, change the format to the format you need. That's called transform. Then you load the data. So you maybe have to load into Tableau or some other, dashboard. Some companies have their own dashboard, or Tableau may be the dashboard they use. So loading into that dashboard is the ETL process, and you model it, transform it, and you load it into the data. Then you project the data onto a dashboard, put it into like graphs format or a table format, some consumable format for the stakeholders. So that's what I do on a day-to-day basis. All of the so day-to-day basis, I'm working on Python and SQL most of the time. Everything what I said is all. So the star schema, snowflake schema can be done in SQL, and then putting into the ETL pipeline, it's all in Python. Building. So basically, like putting SQL into Python is what you do as creating the pipelines. So that is what I did. If there are any questions, we can come to it at the end. So additional skills that you need. One main thing is you need communication skills, because you need to talk to a lot of people, understand what they need. You need to understand the business motivation, understand the use case, and try to solve the problem effectively, right? So as a data engineer, there's usually there's anybody that will translate the business information to you. I have worked in different units, and usually there's a middle manager that will transfer the business information to us in a technical format. So it'll be easy for us to go do it. But as a data engineer, you are that middle manager that has to talk to the business teams, get the business in plain English, basically, and then transfer into technical terms. So you'll be that person. So you need to understand that business motivations. You need to have good communication skills, teamwork skills. All this is very important. That's why I put this as an additional skill, because communication is actually a very important skill for a data engineer. So that is what I have. And then final takeaways from this is Python and SQL are your key skills. If anybody working in the data realm, then you need to understand the business impact. And to build your portfolio, wherever you find opportunities, try to work on real world projects, even Kaggle projects or something, but build your portfolio with if you're looking for a job, you need to build your portfolio, and then projects to reinforce your techniques. And just writing this last one, that I can do this attitude, because I was like coming from different background. Even though I was computer science, I was coming from different backgrounds. So I did not feel that I can do this, but I just kept telling myself, yes, I can do this, and took the small steps. So took a little bit small steps every day, so small steps, and was able to do it. So I always tell everybody, just keep this I can do this attitude, and which is very important. So I think this is all I have. So in this I have all the references for all the courses that are there. And so if you are looking for any open source projects to work on. There's like data science courses, and then this data interview questions. So basically this is like an email, they'll be sending you questions, and I think for solutions you have to pay for them, but you can just have the questions in the interview. So in that they'll send you also statistics and probability based questions. So if you're looking for data science jobs, that will also be covered, but usually if it's data engineering based, you only have to know SQL and Python. So that's all I have. Stephanie, I'm done with the presentation.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for that amazing talk. And we're now going to go into our Q&A portion. And everyone has been very busy leaving you some questions. So I'm going to start reading them off. If anyone else has any questions in the meantime, please pop them in the Q&A section here on Zoom, and we will be sure to answer them today. So the first question, how much time did you need to become a data engineer? Or how much time did it take to become a data engineer?
6 months. So it took me 6 months from start to finish. I did take the Udacity course and took another course by a coaching institute called Interview Kickstart, but that was only for interviewing mainly. But the whole process was like 6 months. Like so I started studying, I think July of last year, and then I started interviewing almost after I've had some confidence that I can do this. And by January, I had a job. So
awesome. Next question. Have you worked with image data? How different to handle from tabular data?
Actually, image data is actually very different compared to tabular data. In but I don't know what kind of difference they're asking. Like if image data is for data engineering, so the image data is handled differently. You have different libraries to use for image data. For tabular data, you can use pandas and NumPy and Python, and you can use basic SQL for tabular data. But for image data, you need different libraries and more in-depth of AI and machine learning. For image data, handling the pixels, and a lot of calculations also.
Thank you so much. Do you have any resources to learn more about data modeling?
Yes, I do have resources. I mean, I can share them. If you can contact me on Slack and Women Who Code Anju Mercian, I'm there, and I can share the information with you, data modeling. And yeah, I can share the information. Data modeling.
Thank you so much. What's an example of a beginner's project?
For example, I can actually, there is actually a resource that I shared here. Here for the one of my projects that I did for initial was like the immigration data set I spoke about. That is actually part of the Udacity course that I did, the immigration data set. So basically, if you take the immigration data set, world temperature data set, and demographics data set, which is all available on the internet, and then kind of build something. I can actually share more resources. I can share more resources on Slack. Stephanie, maybe I can give you those resources and you can share it with the general team.
Yeah, absolutely. We can post something on Slack tomorrow for everyone.
Yeah, for beginners project, right? I'll take it down. Make sure that I send you the resources. There are very good beginners projects, because if in a beginners project, if you can actually work on Amazon EMR and all of that, that'll actually boost your profile a lot. So I'll make sure to share that beginners project.
Fantastic. So next question, what level of Python do you recommend? This person uses Python for visualizations and maps, but not much else.
Okay, so for Python, you need to know dictionaries very well, how to handle dictionaries. You need to know functions like map, any, all. So basically most of the time the questions are all like if you can answer quickly. So if you have like if you can do something in one line, so one line coding, that is the best, especially for interviews. And even Python afterwards also, the base, if you've done visualizations, that should be good enough for day-to-day job. Usually that's good, but you need to know dictionaries and lists and tuples very well for Python. How to handle them, how to map them, lambda functions, quickly map out to lambda functions, apply lambda functions to some data. So if you have been given a data, you need to change the you have for example, you have a column that has a hyphenated, like it's like, for example, it's a column that says US hyphenated AZ. So you need to separate US out of that AZ. So because you want only the state, for example, you only want Arizona state, you want to take out US hyphen. How do you do that in one sentence, right? Like you need to split it, then you need to remove that and then join it without the hyphen. That's something, an example of a Python code that you would need to do. So Python overall is actually a very comparatively an easy language. So if you know middle level, intermediate level, should be good enough. But for actually day-to-day job, you just need basics Python. But for interviewing, they'll definitely, especially bigger companies, will ask you at least intermediate Python. Interviewing is harder than regular day-to-day job. That's something I've learned after interviewing so many times. They grill you during interviewing, but your day-to-day job is much easier.
Wonderful. So another question we have, how have you showcased your portfolio? Do you have a website, a link to a GitHub repo, etc.? And how do you recommend we start our portfolio?
Yes, the website that I share actually has all my GitHub links. And how do you share the portfolio? Is like, have a website. You don't have to create your own website using HTML, CSS, but your GitHub pages can be your website. Your GitHub link can be your portfolio, and showcase all your projects there in your code. So if you take a data science project and you're working on the data science project, create your data science project, data engineering project, and upload it to GitHub, and that will be your portfolio project. I'll share the link to like a few data engineering projects, like for example, COVID. You can do analyze the COVID data structure. Take different sorts of COVID data, and also it's also very important, especially for data engineers, is how big your data is. So if you have worked on data that's more than 1 million rows, which is actually difficult to find, but that is kind of your, that's always a strength. And if you've been able to use a cloud-based storage system, so GCP is actually much cheaper than AWS. So if you can have like a student version or a free version of GCP and kind of do that, it's actually very easy. It's easy. There are lots of tutorials on how to do it online. If you can showcase that and put it on your GitHub, that's a good portfolio. So you start a portfolio, like I'll share the resources for beginners projects. So take one beginners project that you really like for example, a COVID data set, and then figure out, like, you have been given this data, you collected this data, and it'll be in different format. How are you going to read it? Read it using Pandas Python library. Then look at the null structures, clean it up. If there's null, clean up the nulls, or fill in the nulls. What you feel is intuitive, take a look at the data and then join different database tables, all of that. When I share the resource, that will have all of that information. So you just start working on that portfolio there. I hope I'm answering the question properly.
Yes, thank you so much.
Yeah.
So another question, what is the most direct way?
These are
Oops.
actually all very good. Sorry, these are actually all very good questions, because these are some of the questions I also had when starting out. How do I start a portfolio? How do I start so basically, when I started, since I had all these questions, that's why I took the Udacity course. I would recommend taking that, but I know it's an expensive course. They do have offers, so if you are getting a good offer, then try it out. But I did spend some money to start. But also there are lots of resources online for the courses too, and I'll also share a few of it on the general site, so you can read that up and start working on some projects there. It'll be very useful.
Wonderful. So next question, what is the most direct way into data engineering?
Direct way into data engineering. What is that question? What does it mean? Direct way into data engineering. Like, you mean like without taking
Maybe the
master?
shortest path, or, like the easiest way to get into it.
Shortest path would be, I don't know if I'm not promoting anybody, I'm not getting paid also to promote, but Omdina, there's omdina.com, which actually offers free projects, that you can do projects for free, but you have to spend your time and work on projects. You can start off there, because I think they accept beginners also. I'm not saying because I work for them. I'm saying because I also started with them. I also started working for Omdina as a volunteer before I actually got a full-time job there. They have projects. You can, but so you can actually put on your resume saying that, hey, I worked on a real world project. And say, okay, I delivered this project, that's one way we can do it. I don't know if there is any other shorter way. You don't have, like, I wouldn't say you have to go do a master's or anything like that, because now lots of courses are online, so you can take all the courses online. I think there are lots of free courses also in Udacity. Also, there are lots of free courses. Coursera has a lot of free courses for SQL and Python that you can take, and this wide range of Python and SQL available. But the only thing that the challenge that I faced was where to get started. There's so many resources. There's so much of information out there. Where do I get started? That was a big question for me. So that's why I started with the Udacity course, because they gave me a flow, and I like that. I like a flow. I like projects. And so that's how that's why I got started with the course. So if anybody likes a flow, and if you have a little bit of extra money to share on the course, to spend on the course, then I would suggest, maybe take a course if you like taking courses. I like taking courses, so I took the course and I was able to follow a schedule, which is helpful. But if you already know SQL and Python, then you can actually start applying, because most of the times the questions are all SQL and Python. But where you'll get stuck is when you go into on site and they ask you data modeling questions or a business impact question. So they give you design a system with this data, like these tables. So I'm giving you all these tables. So design. How will you design it? So you need to talk about the fact and dimension tables. You need to talk about star and snowflake schema. You know what? This actually told me Stephanie and I will actually come back with another session, in which we'll talk about all this in detail. So I will have another session, like a workshop session, that goes through all of this in detail, like what is data modeling, how do you create pipelines, all of that. So that we'll do that too. But I think that is how you get in. Stephanie, do you think I answered the question?
Yes, thank you so much. All right, there's a lot of excellent questions coming in, and I knew this one was going to come in when we talked, Anju. So what's the main difference between a data engineer and a data scientist?
That's a very good question, because I'd work with a data scientist. So data engineer, basically, most of the time you work on data, in the sense we have tables. We should know where all the tables are, which what are the a particular company will have, like in Hadoop they'll have data, or they'll have it in Hive or something like that. So we need to know how to get the data from Hive and from Hadoop, use like PySpark or like different type of PostgreSQL, MySQL, and get all of that data. You need to understand how to use the technologies to get the data, to clean the data. The data scientists, if you have been a data engineer, you may be doing all this work, but a data engineer is more like top level from a data scientist is actually a top level from the data engineer. So we do all of the groundwork of getting the data, cleaning the data, putting it into dashboards. But the data scientist is kind of top level. They will analyze, talk to many people, and also kind of figure out how to exactly present the data statistically. So they use a lot of statistics, and even data science interviews, they have a lot of statistics. They'll ask you probabilities and statistics. So they have to like give you the question. They will, if you work on the data science, they'll give you the question like, what is the probability that the next week we're going to get less bugs? Or what is this with the previous statistics that we have? How is the product doing in the market? So basically, do the statistics and the probability behind that. So we got that information. So so some companies do data engineering, data scientists together, because the data scientists can actually also do data engineering job. But bigger companies, actually, in the companies that I work, the company that I work for, data engineer is separate from the data scientist. Data scientist does more of the statistics and probabilities, and works with different business teams and the product teams. And as a data engineer, I work with the data scientist to give the data scientists what they want. That's what I do.
Fantastic. So another question unrelated to that one. Can you give an example of a use case you have dealt with as a data engineer?
So the company that I work for, they have a lot of privacy rules. So I can't tell you what exactly they're working on. But when I'm studying, I have worked on like COVID databases. Then also for like a different company that I worked for, I have worked on data for so this like nature based, so this climate change happening, right? So when there are lots of organizations actually working to combat the climate change, like in Africa, for example, they're trying to build mangrove trees, or somewhere in Brazil they're also trying to bring mangrove trees, trying to stop the beaches from dying out. Like the beaches are getting engulfed by the water and they're going into the sea, right? So how do you stop that? So all of this, like a climate change project, which is actually really, I'm very glad I worked on that project. I really love that project. So that is what, so basically what I did as a person from data in that project was try to collect all of the data from all the different organizations that are actually working on this, and kind of create like a single source of truth database for a nonprofit. It's not nonprofit, I think it's a World Resources Institute. So they were the one who came with the projects, World Resources Institute, and they said, we want to know what all these small organizations all around the world are actually doing. So do they need help? How are they doing it? What are the solutions to it? Because what they do right now is they actually go to every organization, have individual one-on-one meetings, and try to gather data with one-on-one meetings. So they said, can you like try and gather this data for us from all these? So they have websites, they update their websites, they have news conferences where they actually update the people about it. So from all this information, gather the data that they have, which actually involve natural language processing. Gather the data have and give us enough dashboard formats that says, okay, they are talking about mangroves, or they are facing financial crisis, or they need help, or they're having political issues that we need help with. So gather this data and give this to us in a consumable format, because they were not data scientists or AI engineers. So give us this to come. So that is one project that I love talking about, because I was very glad to have worked on the project. So that's one use case that I have dealt with, which is actually very difficult, and because natural language processing it's interesting, but we were able to provide their result data. So that's what I worked on.
Awesome. So we have a question. This person worked as a database administrator And she saw a course on Coursera called IBM Data Warehouse Engineer Professional Certificate. So she was wondering how she should start that career, and should she start as an intern? Do you have some insights on that?
So she works as a database. If you've already worked as a database administrator, but I think in database administration, you would have had to not have to deal with a lot of data, but still it'll be as, since you've already worked as a database administrator, you can easily go into data engineering. It shouldn't be a problem. You just need to do a few projects, try to get yourself familiarized with data engineering and all of the cloud information that's out there, like AWS, GCP, what they have, how do you put it into pipeline. If you have all of this information, you can actually easily start as a data engineer, because you already have a database administrator role that you have done. You already are familiar with, the primary keys and foreign keys and all of that. So modeling is very important. For modeling, you need knowing and understanding your schemas are very important. So you can start off, if it's possible, you can actually you don't have to start as an intern. You can move into a full-time if that's what you're looking for, or a contract position. Well, actually, I started off as a contract position before I got a full-time. So you can do that too. Is there anything else?
Thank you so much. Everyone, please continue to put your questions in the Q&A section and not the chat, and we are working through them in the order that they are being received. So I will go ahead with the next question. How big are the data sets you work with?
They are huge. They're like petabytes of data. The data sets are like petabytes of data. But we do something like, window functioning, like we scrape the data out only for a particular week or month and stuff like that. So even then the database is huge, more than 1 million rows, 8 million rows. So you can't do it on your computer system. You need to have a cloud, GCP, a GPU. It's not GCP, GPU, to process all of that information.
Okay, awesome. So next question. How are Apache Airflow and Spark used together? Do you install, manage, configure those tools as part of your data engineering job?
No, that's actually infrastructure engineer. That comes under DevOps. So configuring that is actually done by the DevOps team. Yes, Airflow and Spark can be used together. So Spark is basically the language to analyze the data, right? So you use Apache Spark or PySpark to do the SQL on the data, right? And put it into functions, logical functions, and all of that. And when you have large amount of data, it's better to use Spark, because you have parallel processing and all of this wonderful stuff within Spark. And you actually take that Apache Spark and put it into Airflow DAG so that it runs in a pipeline. Yeah, I have not used both of them together, Spark and Apache Airflow together. I've actually used them separately, but you can use them together. I just use regular, put my regular SQL into tag, which is Apache Airflow, and I do the pipeline over there and work on it. Yeah.
Wonderful. So we have kind of, it seems like kind of a part two to a question we just asked. How big are the data sets do you work with? But then the person says, do you use things like Bigtable or Hadoop to process the data?
Yes, we use Hadoop, like Bigtable, big data. I can't go into exact details, I'm sorry, because we have lots of privacy rules. So yes, but we use big data table that collects the data, and we work on the Bigtable data, but we also have the option of doing it in smaller chunks for your particular team or business unit. So yes, we use big data, and yeah. For the amount of data, it's huge data sets, so you use big tables.
Wonderful. Next question, is it necessary or beneficial to know Excel VBA?
Actually, right, as a data engineer, you may not basically need VBA. I have used VBA, but when I was working as a project manager, It was easy for me to collect data and stuff like that using VBA, but it's not necessary to know Excel VBA. So the main two things you need to know is Python and SQL, not Excel VBA. VBA is not needed. If you know for Excel is good, but VBA is not needed.
Thank you. So next question, is Python object-oriented concepts helpful / required to study for the interviews?
Yes, it's I wouldn't say required. It's good to know, because they wouldn't ask you like classes and inheritance and all of that. They'll just ask you basically how to deal with the data that you have right now. As you, most of the time, it's actually how well you can do in a single line of code. That's what they test you on. Single line of code, how best you can do. So inheritance concepts and all is not very much needed.
Do you have to consider how efficient your algorithms need to be? Do computer fundamentals foundations still apply to data engineering?
Do you have to what? Sorry.
I'll repeat the questioning. It says, do you have to consider how efficient your algorithms need to be? Do computer fundamentals foundations still apply to data engineering?
Yes. Yes, definitely. Because you need to make sure that if you're joining tables and everything, how quickly you can get it done. When you're joining too many tables, you shouldn't take too much processing time. Because your dashboards may have to run quickly. So how do you get your dashboards to run quickly? Do you have to save it in a different table and then take it from that table and stuff? So fill up one table and then take that information from another table because your dashboards needs to come up quickly. So you shouldn't have too much lag. That would be best. So yes, you need to know computer fundamentals as a data engineer. Actually, it'll be an add-on. They won't question you on it, but when you're modeling the data, when you're doing the data architecture, it'll always be good to talk through it so that you can showcase your skills there, your computer skills.
Fantastic. So that is all the questions that I'm seeing in the Q&A section. I think we'll allow just a few more seconds. If anyone has a last minute question for Anju, please let us know in the Q&A, and we will stick around for a couple more minutes to answer those questions. So also just want to give a huge round of applause to Anju for doing this amazing talk and sharing all her wonderful expertise and insights. Really fantastic job. And I learned so much, and I'm sure everyone here learned so much. And thank you all so much for all of your amazing questions. I'm sure she really enjoyed answering all of them for you. And yeah, really fantastic session. I really appreciate all the engagement from everyone.
Just before thank you so much, Stephanie. And one thing is, if you have any more questions, or if you like to see any more details on data engineering, do share on the Slack, so that because actually Stephanie and I were talking, and also from the questions I understand that you want to have in-depth knowledge into how this modeling and all of the ETL process works. So we will definitely have another session where we talk about it in detail. But if you do have anything else that you wanted to be included in that session, please let us know on Slack, and we'll make sure to include it there. So, and also you can DM me on LinkedIn and let me know. I also do write about data engineering and stuff, so I will touch upon all that in my regular blogs also. That's all I wanted to.
Wonderful. So I'm not seeing any additional questions. So once again, a big thank you, round of applause to our amazing speaker, Anju. And I did leave a link in the chat. If you enjoyed today's event, please feel free to leave us feedback. You can also let us know if there are any other questions that you had that maybe you think of after the event for Anju, and we'll be sure that she receives those questions and can respond and share via Slack and or the next event that she would like to host. We also please keep in mind, we have a member meet and greet coming up this Saturday. I forgot to mention this earlier. That's at 11 a.m. Eastern. So would really love to see some of you there if you're available to attend. We're basically just going to kind of have some fun and talk Python and do some fun Python activities. And, it's very laid back and just kind of an enjoyable session. So I just popped those links for you in the chat. So once again, big thank you to our amazing speaker, and thanks everyone so much for all of your amazing questions throughout the session. Very much appreciated. And we look forward to seeing you at future Women Who Code Python events. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you, Stephanie, and thank you everybody for joining.